Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me outside of Maranello, not too far from Bologna in Italy, surrounded by some pretty incredible countryside. But most significantly, I think, this rather magnificent thing behind me, the Ferrari 488 Pista Spider. Now today I'm going to show you all around the car. The spec of this one is particularly gorgeous. Then we'll take it out for a drive to see what the open top hardcore version of the Ferrari 488 is like to drive. So let's get started then and check it out, the new Pista Spider. Let's get started then, taking in all of the details of the Pista before we jump on board, bring it into life and hear the sound of the V8 to take it out for a drive. Now the Pista Spider actually launched only 5 months after the Pista, the Coupe version of the car, and prior to today I've not actually driven either of them, so a first time experience for me to see what the more focused, track orientated derivative of Ferrari's V8 mid-engine supercar is like out on the roads. Now the Pista, like with the previous generations, is that more hardcore version. It sits actually slightly confusingly alongside the newer F8 Tributo in the lineup, but if we rewind a few generations and go back to the 360, that spawned the Challenge Stradale based only on the Coupe. Then of the next generation, the F430, you had the Scuderia, and then of the Spider version you had the 16M, celebrating the 16th Formula 1 World Championship title. Then the previous generation to the 488 was the 458 Italia, and with that you had the Speciale, and then you had the limited edition convertible, the Speciale Aperta. Now for the newest gen, the 488, the GTB spawned the Pista, and the 488 Spider spawned the car in front of us, the Pista Spider itself. Now it's not limited in terms of build numbers, but I believe as a Ferrari customer you could only order either the Coupe or the Spider. So this particular car, to take a quick look at it, there's a lot of aero to talk about, upgrades to the engine and the colours. This is stunning. It's Giallo Triplo Strato, triple layer pearlescent yellow paintwork with a Nart Blue stripe, being a colour from Ferrari's heritage. As we explore around, we've got a lot of exposed carbon fibre. We don't have the optional carbon fibre wheels on this car, but the interior with this dark navy Alcantara as well, and the stitching to match with the exterior, again very nice. We'll go through all of that in detail. I want to take a bit of time to show you around the aero, the way airflow is managed both for cooling and also for downforce around the car itself. But let's touch on the engine. So back here, mid-engine, 3.9 litre twin turbocharged V8. Ferrari have won Engine of the Year many times with this power plant. It's been updated, and in fact, this car's taken quite a few inspirations from Ferrari's 488 racing cars, the likes of the 488 Challenge, 488 GTE, 488 GT3 cars, and in one area in particular, that is the engine as well as the aero. So the engine has about 50% new components. It makes 720 horsepower and 770 newton meters of torque. That means even in the Spider, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 62 miles per hour, is as much, or as little I should say, as 2.85 seconds. 0 to 200 kilometers an hour, 124 miles per hour, is only 8 seconds. Now the Coupe will do that in 7.6, which is remarkably quick, and even the Spider will go on to a top speed of 340 kilometers per hour, 211 miles per hour. So this thing is fast. All of that power going to the rear axle, through the rear tyres with the Sport Cup 2s fitted to this car, through a 7-speed F1 dual clutch gearbox. Now if we come around just to highlight some parts of the aero here, you can see straight through there underneath the rear wing. Around the front you've got this S-duct where airflow has managed to help keep the front down and planted to the ground. And these are really things that have been, well, come from motorsport and feature heavily on this car as we look around. Of course the distinct shape of the 488 is still there, but the bodywork is almost entirely different. So to start at the very front of it, of course pointing to the nose wearing the Ferrari badge, but down here the air is managed through even this wing, which actually floats, so air is coming up underneath and also above and up out through the S-duct, which is all about keeping it planted and down on the ground. Now to look a little bit lower than that, down here you've got these openings and intakes. So what Ferrari have done for the Pista is repositioned the radiators. So where before they were raked down towards the rear, they're now raked up from the front. The reason for that, like in the Challenge car, is for extra cooling without adding additional weight, and you can imagine with more horsepower available from the car, cooling is very important. The front of the car is also adorned with much of the exposed carbon fibre, and in fact some of the bodywork itself, to help contribute to the 40 kilos of weight that's saved, is actually made from carbon as well, including the whole bonnet piece that you have surrounding the S-duct, also the bumper as well. If we continue around the side, you've also got the carbon exposed there for the side skirts, and then you get to the intakes, which is all about managing clean air coming around the car for the intercoolers and the airflow that cools into the engine bay. Whereas previously the 488 GTB and Spider had a split divider here with the engine air coming in through the top section. That is now taken in just here. So clean air comes over the top of the car, comes in here to go in towards cooling of the engine. And then if we come round towards the very back, you can see just how open this is, even with the prancing horse there, just slightly sticking up at the top. But I love that view, love being able to see straight through it. Now down at the rear as well, these cutaways inspired by the FXXK, cutaway to allow airflow to come straight out from the back of the wheel wells. And you can see the aggression of the diffuser down here, the double stages of the fins that you've got, and those pretty, I think we could say, meaty exhaust tips as well at the back, with the central Formula One style light in the very middle. Now, of course, this is a car from Ferrari. It's one of their press cars that I'm enjoying driving today, and honestly, the colours I really, really like. So let's take a quick look then at the interior in more detail. We're in here very, very stripped out. Alcantara, lightweight materials, carbon fibre for the door cards, also around the sides of the floor. It doesn't have a carbon fibre tub, because of course it's an upgrade of, let's say, the previous generations, but we do have the carbon fibre bucket seats and a very, very nice looking interior as well. So let me just step in. I'm going to fire it into life. The button is mounted just here on the steering wheel, so take a listen. And we're into life. Now there's a lot that's been changed about this car. They've now introduced the 6th generation of what Ferrari call slip-slide control, which is all of the different electronic systems working together. It also has a new effect when you reach up towards the red line, and being surrounded by some very nice roads here, that's definitely going to be happening shortly to see what it's about. You've got the Maranello here to control your different driving modes, but very much a strict two-seater here. There's some luggage space up front, although I'll show you all of these kind of things and a bit more detail around the interior afterwards. But this is a car that is designed to be very, very fast on a racetrack, but also quite enjoyable to drive out on the road. A lot of focus placed on bringing some of that race feel to a road car. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. But we've got things like the new shift paddles. These are taken from the 488 Challenge car, and the way the whole car is set up, and different computer systems as well. If you turn it into CT off or take traction completely off, it has a lot of clever trickery going on. So I think, without any further ado, it's time to get the car out on the roads to get a proper feel for what the 488 Pista Spider is like to drive. So let's do this. I'm certainly excited. Let's see what it's about. How awesome is this then? Driving in Italy in a convertible Ferrari with the top down in the sunshine. Could it get any better? Now, first impressions, and one thing that stands out as a bit of a surprise. So currently the Maranello is in race mode. You'd instinctively think race mode is going to be firm, rough and uncomfortable, but it's actually pretty decent even on these fairly bumpy and chopped up roads. Then you can turn it down further still into sport or into wet, where if you wish, you can then press the bumpy road mode button and make it even softer. So that's one of the biggest things that wasn't what I was expecting, in the sense that it's actually a decent car to just get in and drive. Now there are plenty more things to talk about, but the first I'm going to do is pop it back up into race to be slightly more dynamic. But one thing on that point is the automatic gearbox. Now we've got the 7-speed automatic double clutch, incredibly quick shifts, seamless shifts. But what you notice now is driving at normal speeds without pressing the throttle down too hard. Basically it's always in the highest gear, which means in the case of this, the exhaust valves are rarely ever open. It's actually pretty quiet, even with the roof down, and that's taken me by surprise as well. So what you can do, of course, is press automatic, start using the very, very nice carbon fibre shift paddles that this car has mounted to the column, and it has to be said, those are really, really good. Great feel to them. Drop down to second gear, then you start to get a little bit more of that noise, and it's a big talking point in its own right. It's not, let's say, the naturally aspirated engine of the predecessor, and I think Ferrari have challenged themselves in that respect, because the Speciale had this glorious 4.5 litre naturally aspirated engine which just screamed away when you got it up towards the red line. This car has the twin turbochargers, which of course give it a lot more power, up from 605 horsepower in the previous in the Speciale to 720 in this, and almost 200 newton meters more torque as well. So you've got a lot more power. Don't underestimate how much that is, making for it to be a couple of seconds quicker around Fiorano, the test track over in Maranello. The downside though is that you do lose a little bit of the sound. It's just a touch muted, it's not anywhere nearly as loud, and it doesn't have that shrieky resonance all the way through you. However, on the flip side, what Ferrari have done that is particularly clever about this engine, and one of the reasons why it's won so many Engine of the Year awards, is that it basically virtually eliminates turbo lag. It drives almost like a naturally aspirated engine, so it has a very linear power delivery up towards about 6,500 RPM, where you then get a completely flat full power to the very top. So let's say you upshift on the red line, you're still in the peak power band for continued power delivery, and basically the result of that is a very, very smooth feel to the way it puts power down onto the ground. Of course, through the Sport Cup 2 tyres, which were developed for the car, and when you think about this amount of power, that is something that is very important to be able to deliver and use the power and the performance that the car can offer. It also has a thing that happens when you get up towards the red line, which is that it prepares and goes into the next gear without kind of backing off and dipping down the power, so you get these very, very quick kick in the back shifts. We're about to go on to another lovely road, from one lovely road to another, to get a bit more experience of this. In fact, let's drop it down to first gear, just as we go around here, and it straightens out, and get a bit more feel for the power of it. Basically up towards the red line. But that's where you're expecting it to go a little bit more. Perhaps you get to that red line quicker than you initially think you should. Lovely shift lights on the steering wheel. You do start to get some more interesting noises out of the exhaust as well, some extra cracks, but there you also get those funny ones where the valves just don't quite open. And I'm not going TT off, ESC off, but just getting a massive smile on my face. Steering feels good. This kind of driving, there's some nice bubbles out of it as well, but that first gear valve thing is very, very strange. I mean, maybe it's a deterrent from going down into first. If you're downshifting between second and third, you get far less of that going on. Here though, steering, it's precise. The front end is fantastic. Yes, there are still some cars that I prefer to it, but the way that the car feels light and nimble, it's incredibly rigid as well. Despite not having a carbon fibre tub like many of the competitors these days, the car still feels very, very rigid on the tarmac. And this is driving, of course, with the roof down. You pop it up, and then you've got the fixed coupe-like roof line above you, just to give it even more rigidity. Wow, the way it propels, honestly, it probably doesn't look as fast as it is, because of the sound, because of the relative lack of drama, but it honestly picks up so quickly. I just want more sound out of it. I just want it to be more dramatic, whereas it's actually a very usable car. That's not a negative thing at all. It's a car that you really can jump in, drive, use, and have no qualms about. And I'm actually going to turn around just to drive back up this road quickly. So let's just try it over a few little bumps here. No nose lift installed on this one, but it's not actually that low. It manages it just fine, and then we'll be able to swing on and head straight back up, because this really is a fantastic place to be driving with a car like this. Sunshine, nice roads, good visibility, except for where the buttress is. But fortunately, I've lined up in a way that I can see around it. And then off we go again. Picks up speed very, very, very quickly. Now, if we do go to CT off, one interesting thing that you get here is Ferrari's new system, which detects the yaw angle and basically preempts what's about to happen in terms of the car sliding around. So what it will do is, using braking and steering inputs, effectively mean that you don't have to give such dramatic input to the steering wheel to maintain a smooth slide. Now, that's more reserved, of course, for testing on a racetrack or an airfield, or somewhere where you have a little bit more space and it's safer to do so. But it's certainly quite a clever bit of technology, and they've introduced a lot of different technological features to this generation of car to really help with this. And that tech actually, the Ferrari Dynamic Enhancer, actually is found on the F8 Tributo in race mode as well as in CT off. So you don't have to go quite so free from computer controls to experience the car, just helping you a little bit more with it sliding around on the terrain. Here though, wow, when you put your foot down, it just goes. No massive active aero. The car has underbody active aero, especially in the rear diffuser. The way it picks up speed is just mad. It's ferocious. It's ferocious, a proper kick in the back. And the gear shifts as well, they thump you. They really, really do. Thumps in from one to the next. I'm having a great time, as you can tell. This is exactly where this car is fantastic to drive, over a little bump. It communicates a lot, it gives you a lot of feedback as to what's going on. And that's what you want in a dynamic supercar. I was going to say sports car, but it's definitely not a sports car. This is a proper out-and-out supercar. Some verbals there at first. Oh, top down, these kind of cars, these kind of roads. What an absolute dream. Ah, the echoes there off the walls. And I tell you what, when you get to a little town or a village, the immediate thing you notice is how everybody pays attention to the car. There's this, I suppose, underlying sense of appreciation for what they are, particularly in this area. Of course, everybody knows Ferraris come from Maranello around the corner. Probably have a family connection or somebody that worked for the company at some point back in time. Oh, I'm having too much fun, really. That's the only problem, that I can't keep doing it forever, but generally driving it, very good things to say. I'd like there to be a little bit more noise, because that gives you more of a sense of getting particularly up towards the red line. By having it quite muted, you don't necessarily realise that you're actually getting there, and it's time to immediately shift up. I'm impressed by the drivability. I'm very impressed by the fact that the car can cruise along so comfortably, smoothly and easily, particularly if you pop it up into automatic. Generally, good things to say about it. I mean, perhaps it's time for Ferrari to introduce the carbon tub. They've definitely done a very good job of the rigidity on this car, despite not having one. What you can also see inside is the use of the bodywork on the exterior for aero. So the grooves that are dug into the channels through the front, of course, you see in the S duct and around the sides, but very much giving the car some extra downforce versus the 488 Spider, the GTB for the Pista, by the use of the bodywork and the way it's shaped, as well as obviously increasing power to weight by making the car itself 40 kilos lighter, where the Coupe, by the way, is 100 kilos lighter. The Spider only goes to 40 kilos lighter, and that includes if you spec the carbon fibre wheels, which are very, very expensive, so many people don't do so, because they change the way you have to drive. You're concerned about what might happen to them if you hit a pothole, or if, let's say, you curb them. So on the press car, where lots of different people who are unfamiliar with the car are driving it, they don't have the carbon wheels because, well, they're very expensive to replace, should that ever be needed. Cruising along though, what a car, what a drive. I've enjoyed this an awful lot today, out in the sunshine here in Italy. But let me pull over, because there are some more things that I need to show you guys about the new 488 Pista. So on the way back, I didn't actually discuss in more detail what I meant about the brake pedal. So this car has a brake servo like in the 488 Challenge, which means you have this tiny range of movement. So initially there's not very much. You give it a slightly firmer press and then just about everything happens. So you have to have your kind of wits about you when you're using the brake. A few other things that have changed about the car. So the exhaust is actually an Inconel system. That makes up quite a significant amount of the changes in terms of making the car more lightweight, because the exhaust itself is actually 9.7 kilos lighter than the system on the 488. And if you go back through the engine a bit towards the turbos are actually the same setup that the 488 GTB and Spider had, but they're actually with these new speed sensors which enable them to be, well, even better, shall we say, as well. So the car has a few tricks up its sleeve, and it's been driving and just enjoying a little bit more of it before getting back to wrap things up. I'm certainly still having a pretty good time with it. I think I've almost been having a little bit too much fun with this, but let me show you now a few more details, starting with the engine. I'm going to pop open the engine bay, which is found just inside here. On the driver's side, you have a little lever down here on the side with the carbon fibre side sill as well. Give that a pull and it pops up at the back. We can come around and check under here, of course painted in the Nart Blue, glistening in the sunshine. But inside here, you have this new engine. Engine of the year, but now 18 kilos lighter in the Pista than in the regular 488, even though it makes all of this extra power. You can see the heat haze at the moment from the weather, from the driver, driving, from just enjoying it, basically having a good time. But that tucked in basically new conrods, new plenum, new pretty much everything that goes into it to help get that extra power without adding weight. Close that back down. You've also got the carbon fibre top piece, which looks very, very nice as always. Give this a close and a press to click it into place. Now, if we come to talk about the bonnet, in the 488, of course, with the engine back there, your luggage capacity is up front. Of course, by having the S-duct, that digs in a little bit to the available space that you have for the storage. Now, there's a button on the back of the key. Just pop that up. You can see exactly the result of this. So the catch is just under here. It opens up, and it shrunk down slightly. You used to have a little bit more space towards the front, but still a pretty decent amount of capacity that you've got up there. And of course, always with the personalization specifications, the exact spec of this specific car written on the plaque found in the bonnet. And also, while it's open, you can see the exposed carbon of the underside looking very, very nice as well. Some of the carbon parts that I talked about earlier for weight saving on the body panels. So to close this back down, it's a slightly funny one. You give it a press down from that ridge and it clicks into place. But this S-duct, it's really, really cool. You can see that almost air fin in the centre down there with the stripe painted on it, how the air comes in above it and below it to optimise the aerodynamics of the car. Then you've got this crease line that you barely notice really from the outside, but when you're set inside looking out, that gives you a very distinct view over where the front end of the car is positioned. I'm not the biggest fan of the washer jets, the way they're exposed, and don't necessarily look so fantastic against the yellow paintwork, but there's also a lot more to show you on the inside. Let's come back in here quickly just to run through this in more detail. We had a quick look around at some of the materials earlier on. The seats themselves, you'll notice, carbon fibre backed, very supportive, better than I thought they would be, more comfortable for driving on the road. The central tunnel all in carbon fibre with the floating controls as well. I'm just going to step back in actually, just to run through a couple more things. So foot on the brake, start stop button, into life it roars. So you've got these dashboard digital displays, one on each side. Stop start's a funny one. The button for it just here, if you have it on, the engine actually comes to a stop as you're coming before you get to a standstill, which is a kind of interesting thing to experience. So these screens are controlled using the toggles that you have on either side. So for example, just quickly to show you a few things that you can bring here. If you go back to the main display, you've got status, you've got your trip settings, you've got your VDA, which shows you basically how you've got the Maranello set up. Here, for example, if I just flick this through a few different modes, you can see that it shows you how everything's set, SCM being suspension, for example. So if I pop it into sport mode, press the suspension button, it softens that down a notch as well, down to the first level. You can see it's gone blue, as well as the ABS also linked to that. So lots of these control systems running in sync, and you can use bumpy road mode in race mode and in sport mode. In wet it's always soft, and in hard modes you can't actually soften it up. You have to keep it in the modes that the car dictates. So you've also got controls in here for your turbo. You can see in there, turbo boost pressure. Not while we're sitting stationary, can't see anything on that, and lots of settings that you can go through. And if we just go back to the main status page, you've got oil temps, battery voltage and pressure, and your tyre info, so you can set that up how you'd like. Oh, exactly 3,500 kilometres on the dash of this car. On the right, at the moment, we've got the analog speedo. You can also set that to be a large digital speedo. He says press some buttons, change some things, not entirely sure at the moment. Down below though, there's no central screen. Your infotainment is all through here. There's no additional screen for that, which is slightly unusual, and sorry passenger, you can't control the music in this car. You've got your climate control though, dual zone climate control. Down here, a little pouch pocket to store the key, so it places just in there and it will stay there even when you're driving and having some fun. Cup holders otherwise, small little storage buckets that you find around, sunglasses storage bucket, USB port just here, and then here of course your controls for the side windows, the rear window and the roof. Now I've not actually demonstrated this yet, let me give that a press. You press it down to close the roof, the windows go down, you can see the rear deck opening up. The roof is two separate panels, they fold both forwards, upwards and over, down into place. You can do it while you're driving at slower speeds, and then the windows close up just to finish the process. And when it's all closed, you can of course open that rear window section just to hear a little bit more noise, should you wish, without having to have the full open experience. Let's say the weather's not quite so nice, or if it's a little bit too hot, like today is actually. And then reverse the process just to pop it back down so that you can see this in action. The roof opening and the two panels tucking away into that area found at the very back. Also see those parts folding out on the deck lid, and down it comes, and you've got more of that gorgeous colour in the sunshine. All done, nice and easy, a beep to confirm. Other controls you've got up here: lock, unlock, your towing sensor, your reading lights, the start stop button found in the very centre. There aren't too many things around to play with. Down here you've got the button for the fuel cap, to open the bonnet as well, your mirror controls, your light controls, your park brake is down here. And then on the steering wheel you have the touch indicator, so you press it once and it stays on, press it again to cancel or turn of course, or if you give it a firmer press it just blinks 3 times before stopping. You also got your light control here, the bumpy road mode button, and there are a few buttons on the very back of the steering wheel, if you can just see these, for some of your media controls as well, in front of the shift paddles just here. And the shift paddles, like I said, very nice extended carbon fibre pieces. Big fan of those and what they're like. So what we haven't done is, before I turn it off, have a quick little listen to what this car sounds like. So enjoy. It's not all that bad actually. It's not all that bad. Yes, it's a little bit muted. You can hear that instantly, but hey, overall noise is very positive. So we've got a 488 Pista Spider badge here on the dashboard, not a limited number. Speciale Aperta, they were only 499, 16M, the same, 500 or so. So very different than the fact that it's an unlimited run, so to speak. And one quite random thing, the door pockets, not the biggest. You're not going to be fitting very much in there, like a phone maybe, or a wallet, not much else beyond that. JBL sound system, but let me just turn it off and we revert to silence to take a step back out after our first proper look then at the Ferrari 488 Pista Spider. And honestly, for today's drive, this has been glorious, a magical thing. It's got lots of the carbon fibre options. You can, I think, maybe spec the spoiler in carbon. Certainly the Pista Pilotti does, which is a car that pays tribute directly to the number 51 car that won the World Endurance Championship in 2017. But with the success in WEC of Ferrari, that's why they've done so much in terms of incorporating that technology into their road car with the Pista. And this rear end is a really cool looking thing. It just looks the business. It looks purposeful, aggressive and menacing. The front I think loses a little bit of that because of the S-duct, but the rear is an angle I particularly like. You can see how the spoiler is also lifted and curved slightly higher up than found in the 488 as well. Anyway, I think that is more or less it for today. A proper look at the Ferrari 488 Pista Spider. I certainly had an amazing time offering you my thoughts, feedback and experience from my first drive in the car. That's it for today though. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your support as always guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!